He's just 42 years old, and he's been given the keys to an iconic franchise. Chaim Bloom is in Las Vegas this coming week for the general managers meetings. But before he left, we sat him down.
This Sports Plus conversation is sponsored by your Quality Ford dealers. Ford F-Series, America's best-selling trucks for 47 years.
Being the president of a baseball team does seem like the coolest job in the world. When did this become a dream?
Early on. I've loved baseball since I was a kid. I also wasn't very good at playing it, so there had to be another way in. And when I was in high school and going to college, there were some pathways into the game that were starting to open up for people that did not play at a high level, and I decided to go after it. Just decided to see if I could work in baseball. I think at that point, you can daydream about being a GM or a president. Well, those days it was only GMs. That president title on the baseball side hadn't really been invented yet. You can daydream about that, but you don't really know what it means. All I knew is that I was really interested in the front office side of things and wanted to try to see if I could make it a career.
So you know about this great baseball history, obviously, and people not happy with 3 playoff-less seasons in a row. How can 2026 look different than 2025?
Well, people shouldn't be happy. Nobody in this organization is happy with that. That just, simply put, that's just short of the standard that's been established here over time. We got a lot of work to do to get back to that standard. We're going to get very hard after that work, but I tried to be clear with everybody, a month plus ago when I was introduced. There are not shortcuts for that work. And in order to get back to where we really should be, you talk about that standard, now you're talking about a team that consistently competes for this division, that consistently competes for World Series. That has to be our end goal. The sooner, how soon we can get there is less important than how well we can get there, and that when we get there, we have the ability to sustain it. And some parts of that may take longer than others, so we just got to keep our eye on that. We're not going to try to optimize for 2026 over that larger goal. I actually think that if we pursue that goal really vigorously, we pursue it with purpose, we don't get distracted by Band-Aids here and there, the shiny objects that distract you from your goal, we actually have a chance to do better in the short term if we do that. But if that happens in the short term, I want to come by it honestly, not because we tried to Band-Aid or go for a quick fix.
So this is a great job, but you also have some difficult contracts to deal with. Now, I know you can't reveal your strategy to me right now, but the Nolan Arenado saga is really tough for a GM trying to rebuild an organization. How do you see that, or what can you tell us?
Yeah, that, I always try to be as open as I can, and that's something that's actually pretty easy to be open about. We're completely on the same page with Nolan look, this guy's, he's going to Hall of Fame, I believe. But we all agree, I think it's it's time to move on, that just where he's at in his career, where we're at, the other players we have, just the way our team's coming together, it makes sense to find a different fit for him.
The organization has used the rebuild word like it's the F word. Why not just come out and say it? And I think everybody loves transparency in their baseball general manager and in their politicians.
Yeah, I'm not allergic to that word. The reason I didn't use it is just because I think for some people that might have a connotation that we don't want to give. It might mean, people hear the word rebuild, they think, oh, you're tanking, you're diving for the bottom, you're trying to amass draft capital. This sport doesn't really work that way, in my opinion. This organization is always going to be trying to win. It's just about being strategic about how we build to that.
They say the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So with that said, the Jordan Walker situation, what do you do differently?
Yeah, it's easy to forget with Jordan how young he is. It's not his fault that he was in the big leagues at 20. And obviously he showed, even at that age, where the promise is and what his upside is. But obviously there were some ups and downs there, and some things where we had to make up ground for ways where he might not have had the proper foundation in terms of his development.
But his offseason looks like what now as opposed to the last couple of years?
It's just in terms of what the training plan is for him and the swing adjustments he's trying to make, the swing and movement adjustments, I should say, that he's trying to make. Getting on the same page with the staff as to what that best version of him needs to look like, how he can identify spin better, make better swing decisions, and have a better path to the baseball.
So last offseason, John Mozeliak told us he had to reduce payroll. In a season with low attendance and probably declining television revenue, is that the same situation now? What can you tell St. Louis about that?
Yeah, we don't have a firm payroll number right now, which in some ways I think is good, because I think if the right opportunity is there for us, that really makes sense within the context of our plan. It's something that we could talk to ownership about, and I think we'd get support. My best guess is that it's not going to be markedly different from where it was in 2025. Certainly that was a big drop from 24.
Let's hit some young player thoughts. Quinn Matthews, your minor league pitcher of the year a year ago, but this year walks up, shoulder issue. How do you see him at this point?
Yeah, it was definitely an up and down year for Quinn. I think he finished better than he started. This is a guy, you look at his 2024, man, he blew through the minor leagues. And really until he hit AAA, he didn't really face any challenges. It's not the worst thing in the world for a young player to bleed a little bit in the minor leagues. They are going to fail at some point in their careers. Very, very few guys get to the big leagues without experiencing some failure, and a lot of those who do then experience failure for the first time in the big leagues. The question is always, outside of a small handful of elite players, they all experience failure at some point. How do you respond? What do you learn from it? I do think he learned some tough lessons in 25.
Is there a scenario next season where J.J. Weatherholt gets 500 bats with the St. Louis Cardinals?
Could certainly happen. I'm not putting any limitations on what he could do. He's got a chance to be a really good player. There's always still going to be some growth left. That is true for every player. He passed just about every test that was put in front of him. We still want to make sure wherever he's at that we're continuing to work towards his ceiling, because it's really, really high. But definitely not putting any limits on what JJ could do in 26 or certainly beyond.